Vince McMahon built an empire in the world of wrestling, taking WWF to the pinnacle of success and transforming it into a global powerhouse. However, the same determination that propelled him to the top also exposed a darker side to his leadership. McMahon's meteoric rise was marked by innovation and achievement, but his fall revealed an environment fraught with controversies, abuses, and questionable practices. But before we dive deeper into the complex and controversial aspects of his legacy, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the amazing videos we'll be releasing. In an era when icons of power and influence often fall from their pedestals, the downfall of Vince McMahon is a particularly impactful spectacle. Known as the archetype of the wrestling tycoon, McMahon transformed WWE from a regional promotion into a global entertainment empire. However, behind the scenes, his dominance wasn't just a matter of business. He embodied the very essence of the villainous character that audiences love to hate. What many failed to realize was that McMahon's dark behavior and questionable tactics, often staged in the ring, had disturbing echoes in real life. Recently, a series of shocking revelations exposed the darkest aspects of his empire, from allegations of abuse and cover-ups to transgressions that challenge morality and the law. Behind the scenes of wrestling, few names resonate as strongly as Vince McMahon. His father, Vincent McMahon, was a respected figure in the regional scene, running the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, WWF, and establishing a strong presence in the northeastern United States. Wrestling in those decades operated territorially, with promotions protecting their own regions and avoiding interactions with other markets. The landscape was more fragmented and less globalized than what we know today. Vince McMahon Jr., however, had much bigger visions. From an early age, he was dissatisfied with the status quo and dreamed of expanding his father's business beyond regional borders. Though he initially faced resistance, especially from his father, who wanted to keep the WWF as a regional promotion, Vince Jr. got his chance in 1972. His innovative plan to broadcast wrestling on television marked the beginning of a transformation that would forever change the world of wrestling. In a decade of innovation and bold moves, Vince took the WWF to new heights, bringing in iconic stars and doubling his TV audience. However, the true revolution began when Vince took full control of the company in 1982 after his father's death. He embarked on a relentless mission to dominate the wrestling market, acquiring territories and buying TV slots from rival promotions, marking the beginning of an era of radical transformation and controversy. One of Vince's first significant moves was consolidating and monopolizing wrestling talent. Andre the Giant, one of the most imposing figures of the time, was one of the first to be recruited. With his staggering height of 7'4" inches and weight of 500 pounds, he not only drew crowds but also symbolized the type of star Vince needed to propel his vision. Another major name, Hulk Hogan, who had previously worked across state lines for a fee, saw his career change dramatically under Vince's guidance. Hogan and other top wrestlers like Rocky Johnson, Roddy Piper, and Randy Savage were signed exclusively to the WWF. This practice, common today, was seen at the time as a direct attack on the competitors' businesses. Vince McMahon also bought the Atlantic and Pacific Wrestling Corporation and consolidated his control over several of the largest wrestling markets in the United States. He established his brand in strategic markets, including New York, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. Vince's strategy was as aggressive as it was calculated. He used his access to television to promote the WWF, buying TV slots and replacing rival promotions' broadcasts with content from his own company. In 1983, the WWF entered Akron, Ohio, acquiring the local TV station Walker 23, and then expanded into Cincinnati and Dayton, displacing Georgia Championship Wrestling and World Championship Wrestling, respectively. This approach not only increased the WWF's national presence, but also severely crippled its competitors by taking away the visibility and resources they needed to compete. The most notorious turning point in Vince's aggressive expansion was the event known as Black Saturday. On July 14, 1984, Vince made a notable appearance on TBS, which had aired Georgia Championship Wrestling for over a decade. On that date, he announced the purchase of the company and its TV slot, declaring the WWF as the new dominant force in professional wrestling. The impact was immediate and devastating for many in the industry. Rivals reacted with disdain and in some cases open hostility. Jim Ross, one of WWE's most respected commentators, recalls that Vince's invasion sparked such resentment that some promoters even considered drastic measures. This sense of threat was not unfounded. as Vince was rewriting the rules and reshaping the future of wrestling with ruthless determination. However, Vince McMahon's success did not come without its controversies. The same competitive spirit that allowed the WWF to dominate the market also led to questionable practices and a culture of aggressiveness. As Vince solidified his position as the central figure in wrestling, the impact of his decisions and actions began to reveal a darker side of his leadership. This side would eventually become central to his downfall, raising questions about ethics, power, and the consequences of absolute dominance. Under Vince's leadership, the WWF cemented its absolute control over the industry, thanks to a combination of phenomenal talent and relentless marketing strategy. Stars like The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Matt and Jeff Hardy, Triple H, Mick Foley, Kane and The Rock became synonymous with success and innovation in wrestling, making the WWF an undeniable powerhouse. However, in 1999, the pursuit of grander spectacle resulted in a devastating tragedy. Owen Hart, performing as the Blue Blazer, died after a 90-foot fall due to a poorly planned entrance stunt. The tragedy, which occurred at the Over the Limit event, was compounded by Vince McMahon's controversial decision to continue the show instead of halting it. In an interview with Playboy, Vince defended his choice, stating that he believed Owen would have wanted the event to go on. This decision reflected a ruthless approach and an unwavering focus on entertainment, regardless of the personal toll. The Attitude Era that followed marked a period of drastic and provocative changes in the WWF. The early 2000s ushered in bolder, more aggressive narratives, with scripts often altered at the last minute and a heavy emphasis on brash, provocative characters. Vince McMahon became a central figure during this era, portraying a maniacal, power-hungry CEO. His rivalry with Steve Austin, which began in 1997, became one of the era's biggest highlights. However, the stories of the Attitude Era weren't solely about entertainment. They frequently pushed the boundaries of acceptability, reflecting a relentless pursuit of shock and scandal. Some of the most controversial storylines, including the fictitious funeral of Katie Vick, Chyna's torture by Chris Jericho, and the Kiss My Ass Club, where wrestlers were forced to kiss Vince's rear end to keep their jobs, demonstrated an increasing focus on humiliation and shock value. The storyline involving Stephanie McMahon, his daughter, revealed a disturbing dimension of the narratives Vince was willing to explore. Plots that involve Stephanie being kidnapped and forced to marry The Undertaker's character, as well as attempts to incorporate themes of incest and abuse, raised serious ethical and moral questions within wrestling. A notable example of this trend was a storyline with Trish Stratus, who played the role of a mistress engaging in a relationship with the boss to advance her career. This storyline not only explored highly controversial themes, but also involved Vince's wife Linda in humiliating situations. In a disturbing plot, Linda was depicted as a patient in critical condition under heavy medication, while Vince and Trish engaged in intimate scenes in front of a global audience. Vince's insistence on taking brutality and humiliation to an extreme level did not stop there. He orchestrated scenes where his wife was physically assaulted by their children as part of a plot to generate interest. In an environment where audience ratings were the top priority, moral and ethical boundaries were often disregarded in the name of entertainment. Trish Stratus, despite her attempts to advance within the company, faced degrading treatment that culminated in a humiliating situation where she was forced to strip in the ring and bark like a dog. Vince's approach to women in wrestling also included creating the bra and panties match, a type of match where the female wrestlers won only by stripping their opponents down to their underwear. Vince frequently pushed storylines where women had to submit to sexual favors as part of the narrative, fostering an environment where the integrity and dignity of the female wrestlers were often compromised. Tori Wilson, one of the most prominent female stars of that era, expressed her dissatisfaction with the sexualized roles forced upon her. However, the emotional and psychological impact of Vince McMahon's practices was not limited to the female wrestlers alone. Ashley Massaro was one of several women whose stories revealed a troubling pattern within the WWE, with allegations of abuse, manipulation, and coercion by Vince McMahon being a dark part of the company's legacy. Her experiences, which ended in tragedy, are only the tip of the iceberg, reflecting a toxic culture that persisted behind the scenes for years. Vince's abuse of power, which began with his insistence on exploiting the divas sexually for viewership, eventually led to irreparable psychological and emotional damage for many women. The fact that she was pressured to remain silent about one of the most traumatic moments of her life for the sake of maintaining a good relationship with the US Army exposes the level of manipulation and disregard for the well-being of female wrestlers. Ashley's statement, revealed in 2024, casts an even darker shadow on McMahon's backstage behavior. The fact that he began personally writing her storylines after she rejected his advances highlights the level of control and vindictiveness he wielded over those who defied him. This, coupled with accounts from Paul London and others, paints a picture of systematic abuse of power, where Vince used his position to punish those who did not comply with his demands. Active exercise of power by those in control. The devastating event Ashley reported during the Tribute to the Troops tour in Kuwait, where she was drugged and raped, exemplifies how vulnerable many of these women were. The imposed silence, justified by the need to preserve relations between WWE and the US Army, reveals a cruel side of the corporate machine that prioritized partnerships and public image over the dignity of its employees. Paul London's accounts, Ashley's ex-boyfriend, only corroborate the toxicity behind WWE's scenes. Moreover, McMahon, with his power and influence, used his position to control female wrestlers, putting them in uncomfortable and degrading situations. His persistent advances, such as incessant phone calls and manipulating storylines to damage their careers, show how psychological and sexual harassment were common, often ignored or covered up by those responsible for protecting the victims. Ashley Massaro's death in 2019 at the age of 39 left a massive void, not only for her daughter, but for fans and friends who followed her journey. On various occasions, WWE tried to downplay the allegations, labeling them as unfounded. However, Ashley's statements during a lawsuit, which surfaced in 2024, shed new light on the allegations against Vince McMahon. With the growing wave of accusations and more voices coming forward, it's becoming increasingly clear that the long-held secrets of Vince McMahon and WWE are finally coming to light. In January 2024, Vince McMahon found himself at the center of another legal storm. This time, Janelle Grant, a former WWE employee, filed a lawsuit against the company's ex-CEO, accusing him of abuse, exploitation, and human trafficking. Grant claims that McMahon used his power to manipulate her and force her into fulfilling his demands, while also involving her in a trafficking network for other WWE executives and employees. According to the lawsuit, Vince McMahon began coercing her into encounters and later shared explicit photos and videos of her with other WWE employees. The abuse reached its peak in 2020 when Vince not only shared explicit images of Janelle but also involved her in degrading acts, even forcing her to participate in grotesque scenarios with other executives. One of the most revolting episodes described in the lawsuit happened in May 2020, when McMahon physically and psychologically humiliated Janelle, forcing her to continue sexual acts in unbearable situations. The text messages included in the lawsuit reveal how much Vince tried to control her life, with countless attempts to subjugate her emotionally and sexually, even suggesting selling her to other men. However, in 2022, the relationship between Vince and Janelle abruptly ended. Linda McMahon, Vince's wife, discovered the affair and threatened to file for divorce. Fearing damage to his reputation and family, Vince cut off communication with Janelle and, in exchange for her silence, offered her a $3 million non-disclosure agreement. Yet, after an initial $1 million payment, Vince halted further payments, leading Janelle to seek justice through the courts. Vince McMahon denies all allegations, claiming that the relationship with Janelle was entirely consensual. In a public statement, he defended himself by saying that Grant willingly sent him explicit images and that they maintained a mutually consensual relationship. We remain confident that the evidence will show Miss Grant's allegations to be false and that her complaint is nothing more than a fabricated and vindictive narrative of a disgruntled ex-girlfriend, McMahon stated in his defense. However, federal authorities are thoroughly investigating the case. In 2023, federal agents seized McMahon's phone and summoned him to testify before a grand jury. Since then, the investigation has gained momentum, and there are indications that an extensive dossier on Vince McMahon's activities may surface at any moment. With McMahon's reputation tarnished and potential criminal action underway, the future of WWE's former CEO seems uncertain. What was once viewed as mere eccentricity in his public life now appears to be a disturbing pattern of abuse of power and predatory behavior. What do you think about the rise and fall of Vince McMahon's career? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. See you in the next one.